Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So they really stretched the whole Venice section of this game out way more than I probably even really remember. I had hoped that in an hour's time we would have gotten through all of it, but there's just so much in the way as far as getting to the Crusader's tomb. So we can see in this room, there's this big machine that has a wheel and a machine, and that's about it. Uh, we are starting to see more rooms with only a couple things in them, or often rooms that in the caves in the sewer system where there's really only one thing in it. Um, but it probably would have been better to reuse these art assets. It is also probably important to mention that the guy, the soldier slash maybe Nazi with the big gun, had to have a big gun because later on in the game we're going to have people that are going to threaten us with smaller guns, and there's going to be potential feelings there that you could either take them out with a whip or punch them. Which it's also worth mentioning the whole boxing section has been kind of forgotten about. So there's a wheel. Don't see anything special about it. Really, not a lot of dialogue. Don't see anything special about it. So let's go ahead and give the wheel a spin, even though we don't know what it's going to do. You can see that the rope moves and it makes a sound, and it spins some of the gears, but not all of the gears. And you would think there might be a difference here between like the chain and that. And here you can see there's a red colored connecting belt, which obviously is a hint. We get some background music in this section, which really makes you wonder why not have the background music in all the sections, unless it's very much a case that there literally was not enough RAM to play the MIDI music in a scene as big of a uh, as big of a visual aspect as this does, because you can definitely tell that in the previous cave top down section that they really aren't drawing much. Uh, hmm, I think I heard a horn going off outside my house. Interesting. So now we're in another room. We've got three statues, which is their combination lock, and a wooden door, pretty obviously. We can look at the Grail Diary, which is going to give us a hint. The configuration is labeled correct. This configuration is labeled certain death. How curious. So you have to be very careful to not get that configuration. And certain rooms are just going to give you certain hints. So the Grail Diary is just a hint book. Um, so you can't see anything about it. And the thing that a lot of people might not figure out immediately, which could cause more wandering, is that you can push the statues to spin them. But notice how it moved. And we potentially got dangerously close there to the answer that would be certain deaths. So you want to be fairly careful. I bet you can't actually accidentally get the certain death option unless you're just brute forcing it. You can definitely feel that they are trying really, really hard to make it impossible for you to brute force. And just a lot of rooms here that go in circles. Yeah, I could see how by keeping the visual aspects limited here, you can get the background music. Whereas a more modern game would almost certainly have this kind of background music. You'd think about it a little bit more, and you would make it so it plays 2 or 3 minutes, if not 4 or 6 minutes of music before it looped, which again, that would just be hard drive space and memory space. Uh, so here you can see there's a black part here and a part here, and it's fairly obvious that there should be a belt around that. And you could either use, you can't use the Grail Diary, a small key, or painting an old book, so you could either try to use the whip with the machine. That's not what I carry a whip for, which is to say, he uses the whip very rarely in the game, and it kind of helps in later Indiana Jones games that you really don't have the whip as an item to try and use. You could certainly, as we start to see more people, imagine thinking about using the whip on different people. So you use the red cordon, which was the item that was being held by the barrier, the metal stands in the library. And then you can use the wheel, push the wheel, or pull the wheel, and any one of those will work. And so now the chain lowers, which is great, but we don't know what that we just lowered. Remember, the only thing here is this, and you can't climb back up here, I don't think. I'll be darned. Weird that the game gives you the impression that you can't climb back up, and frankly, it probably should not let you climb back up as a way of just keeping forward momentum in the gameplay. This is definitely a point where if this were just a regular video game, you would throw in some bats for him to whip or box, or you would throw in some kind of skeletons and magic curse, or something at all. A very modern game would probably do something like a Far Cry scene if it was based off the Last Crusade, and have like poisonous gas or mushrooms make Indiana Jones hallucinate, and then he could be fighting skeletons without it really breaking reality. So we want to avoid the none or Mary flag, horse to left, probably just horse. We want death, and then statue, and then dragon. So we already have death, kingdom. So the only thing we'd have to move here is this. So I probably should save. And see, that again potentially killed you, and there really is just no reason for these kinds of elements, like instant deaths that would make you potentially go back to whatever save point, which I could imagine a lot of people not even really having a lot of hard drive space or any hard drive space. This was a 3 floppy disk game. It very possibly ran on computers that had no space at all, potentially no space to save even on those 3 floppy disks. Potentially you don't have a second floppy disk drive or any other save file of sorts. And see, we can see that this one ticks every time. And see, she almost, that was almost the wrong solution again. Death church, or death castle dragon. So we need to just move this. A modern game would probably have buttons or something here. Interesting, you see little bits of reflections of water here. Something to indicate that these spin. Let's see what pushing the middle one does. The middle one moves itself. So and the right one moves the left one. So we did do it right. Now we just need to push this in the middle. And that opens the door to the next area. Just a lot of gameplay here. Which is weird because it does definitely show that they chose winners and losers as far as what parts of the Last Crusade movie did they want to embellish on and grow, like this section, and what parts of the Last Crusade did they not want to even bother to include, like the first short scenes. You could have even put the story out of order. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a whole lot of experimentation and a whole lot of failure in experimentation while making this game. And they probably had a lot of ideas and then they ran out of time, or they ran out of budget, or they were just directly told by people like Steven Spielberg that don't focus on this section. I wouldn't even be super surprised if their first thought was to only release like the first floppy disk of the game, and thus the rest of the game would not be available until the movie actually came out. I could even see them giving away for shareware the first floppy disk. There's literally nothing here to look at because we already lowered this, but we fairly know that was the Great Machine. And you can see this is pretty terrible point and click adventure gameplay design, in the fact that you solve the puzzle before you even saw what the barrier to progression was. And I think it's probably fair to say that even an average player would have solved that puzzle, or had a decent chance of solving that puzzle before they made it to the bridge. It doesn't particularly feel great as a point and click adventure game also to have to use the Grail Diary to see exact solutions, because that does feel like you're referring to a cheat section or a hint section. And you definitely see in modern games, more modern games, that if there are hint systems, they make it extremely clear this is a hint system. You won't be punished for it, or in some games case you will be punished for it and not get an achievement or something else, or your score will lower. We've got a very repeated dead ends on this one, but then a fairly quick direction to get to where we are supposed to go. It could be at some point they even thought about there being a big escape sequence in which you would have had to actually quickly move out of this puzzle section, as it was like flooding, but I don't think that really happens. I wouldn't be surprised if their first thoughts was to just have this be the only part of the game, just walking around the Venice parts, and thus this saves them a bunch of up close higher resolution animation. But the weird part about that, if that was the case, is things kind of had to change later. It's not like the game after this section is extremely lacking in content. Barnet College feels like it's a early tutorial section for sure, but and it's lacking in content. But there's definitely 2 or 3 other sections. Oh yeah, and now I've just remembered one of the worst puzzles in this game. It's fairly easy for me to potentially remember something I did in Last Crusade in the Lego games, or Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. So It is fairly easy to mess up here. But this might actually be easier now that I have a bigger screen too. So we've got these skulls. And this really feels like the Goonies more than this feels way more like the Goonies than it does Indiana Jones. And very well, this might have been what he had planned on doing. Maybe half of the Goonies movie. I don't know if Last Crusade came out before or after the Goonies. I bet the Goonies came out after. And maybe these were ideas that Steven Spielberg took to the Goonies. But yeah, you'll have no idea what to do unless you look at the Grail Diary. Per hos sonos spectrum aberis, from a manuscript of Abbasis Hildegard of Bingen. The episode uses an obscure musical notation, and I'm not sure why it never has more than 6 different notes. So this looks like it's fairly easy to do. But the question would be, is this a marker of you need to be able to read music, which at the time this game came out, I imagine a few more people could read music than they do today, or do you just need to know spaces? So let's go furthest to the left, and then let's see, 1, 2 to the right, furthest to the left, to the right, to the right, and see how that works. And see, in most games, even a point and click adventure, this would probably be automatically done if you just use the Grail with the skulls. But no such luck on something this old. And you can see it said no to that. We will just use the Grail Diary. So you can't use the Grail Diary with anything. I don't think there's any half notes. So that means you could never start here unless you're going the opposite direction. So there's only really like 3 options here to try and brute force this. Alright, so we'll try that again. Starting with this one, even though I didn't really do it right. There's major problems in the fact that this does not zoom in close, so you would see that in almost any other point and click adventure. And this really isn't as much a music idea as it is a pattern idea, but the pixels are the problem more than anything else. Unless it's not in the right order. I definitely remember banging my head against this puzzle and just not getting it. We have one more possible answer. So none of that worked. You can't look at the skulls. Don't see anything special with it. So unless it's on the other side, which really makes no sense, but may be the case. That's really confusing. The sounds do sound slightly different, but you're talking like MIDI audio. So it was on the other side. The lowest note was here, and instead of being here. Very, very poorly designed puzzle, in my opinion. Audio puzzles, generally not good puzzles. But boy, are we wasting a lot of time in this section. Like, none of this happened. We're just going lower and lower. None of this happened in the movie, is what I mean. Let's see. And almost every single one of these patterns and mazes are unimportant because they all end up in the same place, or they end up in a dead end. Worst case scenario, there's 2 areas, and you can see there I walked right into a red eye, and the red eye did not do anything. It just disappeared as the area was illuminated. It would make a lot of sense if there were snakes or rats running around in this whole section. Unless there's another section I've forgotten too. I think you just get to the end here. I don't think there's another room. Having one puzzle in one room and then having them not be connected is a real mistake. The normal way you would do this is you would have 3 or 4 branching paths, and then when you walk through a doorway, it would walk you into a different area, and that would just be it. Finally. So, very possible that I missed something, but I'm going to kind of hope I didn't. Let's see, what's kind of crazy here is, before we look at the casket, we can look at the old rusty lock and see if we can open it. Don't see anything special with it. We could use the small key in the old rusty lock. That'd be really crazy, wouldn't it? Doesn't seem to work. Use the whip with the old rusty lock. That's not what I carry out the old rusty lock for. Full grading. Doesn't work. Pull. Old rusty lock. So just pulling it opens the way to exit if you needed a shortcut. And certainly you probably do need a shortcut at the end of that experience. That is a lot of extra content in supplication or supplanting the dialogue and conversation and the visuals you'd have in the movie. This looks like the casket of what? Of the Lost Knight. So here we're going to get a zoomed in image to try to match the image that was shown in the first game. And yeah, I could say the Lego game did it better many, many years later, but that's not a fair comparison. I could say the movie did it better and with a lot more funding, and that's not a fair comparison. But I also have to point out that this is like a very, very old first generation Scum VM game, and you can see some major flaws and just how much that wasted your time. Open it. Wow. And then look inside. Quite the odd sound. The shield of the second marker Donovan spoke of. Let's see. It mentions the ancient city of Alexandretta. Today, the city of Isterrun is built on its ruins. We'll find the Grail near there. Notice that What we don't have here is any kind of like chalk or paper to do a rubbing, which is what I think was done in the movie. We didn't really get any items either. We just used up the items we had picked up in Venice. And all we end up having is information that just lets us travel to a different area. And you don't even get background sound in that specific room, which probably is because there's either so much visuals or because they needed to load that one sound effect. And I think you just trigger a cutscene when you walk up here. Dr. Jones, I've been looking all over for you. Indy. Marcus, I found out where your father is. He's being held captive in the Braunwald Castle on the Austrian-German border. Great. And I found out where the Grail is. It's in Iskenden. I've never heard of this city. It may be made up. Marcus, why are you all wet? Don't ask. This is the response. Okay, I'll rescue Dad. You meet me in Iskenden. Sure. No trouble. I'll be off now. See, this is supposed to be comedic, and it probably was comedic for the time. Where is Iskenden? So we get a map that's probably pretty out of date at this point, and we're into the next act. I'll go scout around. Alright, I'll stay in the car. I'll come back in a few minutes. So it's probably worth saving at this point. Here you see some major graphics. Here you hear major music, so you know that was it. And this is the point where we're going to start having enemies, and it's going to start to make sense that you might actually box some people. There's actually several different solutions in the long run to several different elements of this game, of this section. So I would say this probably was worked on in parallel as far as the section with the Venice section. And of course, the very end section is going to play a big role. Here we've got lightning, but you don't have your bar, so it's a bigger image than even what they were thinking. I wouldn't be surprised if this was an early experiment around the idea of just a point and click with no verb wheel. Right. So over here, there's a stone in which we can sneak in. But if we did that, we would miss out on the fine leather jackets concept. Yeah, we have a motorcycle. I think we may escape this way. Pick up motorcycle. Can't pick that up. So, and then you can go to the front of the castle again. Wonder where Elsa went. Maybe she was captured. And of course, if you've seen the movie, and you know there's spoilers there. So let's see. Let's see if we can sneak in the back. It doesn't seem to match. Alright, so you're going to escape later that direction. But at the moment, we're going through the front door. So you have a Nazi butler knocking on the door. Hello? And who might you be? Now, here's an interesting idea. You can now throw a punch, which you never see this in any other point-and-click adventure game that I can think of. And you could repeat the lines that were done in the movie, or you can go with your own choices. So we could click this one, or we can go with the regular ones. Are you the one with the relatives in town? My nephew Otto in Salzburg. Is something wrong? No, he's fine, but you must go to him immediately. He was injured. He drove his car off the road nearby. It's not him, it's father. Father, Otto sent me to you. See, if you make this guess, he'll go, his father is dead. Drove his car off the road nearby might work, but if you keep particularly generic with no details, you're not going to get caught in a lie as much. No, he's fine, but you must go to him immediately. Just a minute, sir. How can I be sure you actually know Otto? Let's see. Of course you can't be sure. Trust me. I can prove that I know Otto. And how we do that? I know his name. I know where his uncle works. QED. Oh well, I better get to him right away. So yeah, that's one way you could do it. Or you could have thrown a punch. There's really no reasons to throw a punch as a solution, particularly for that. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, and this is where the replayability goes, and we do have swastikas. Sir, you sent for me? Yes, I want to protect that priceless painting we just acquired. Priceless, but it's just a painting of an old cup. Silence. The Fuhrer is very interested in it. How dare you question the Fuhrer's judgment? No, sir. Then leave me and return to your post. Yes, sir, Colonel Vogel. You can see there's a dog, and the dog will be part of a puzzle to get around him. We want to get the painting. We want to get actually quite a lot of items if we're going to try and get everything. And in a funny way, the castle as it is very much like the cave we just exited out of, but it's 2D and it's going to have more of a thought. So we can go this way. Nope, it's not 2D. We can go this way, and we've got rooms that will connect to other rooms, but they pretty much have nothing else in them. So we know that, but we also now know that doors open. It's not particularly worth your effort to try to box every single Nazi in this castle. Some of them are going to be very, very strong. Some of them are going to be relatively easy. Here we can look at this tapestry. It's kind of ratty. Dad wouldn't like it. Let's see, what else do we have? We have a tapestry here and then like a pink pixel. That might be a glitch again. Pick up tapestry. Don't want it, and there's nothing behind it. So, like, really, is there a point for any of this other than it's just drawn? It's just doing something to be different. You see a lot of rooms like this, and you don't really need to like memorize the carpentry. There's no puzzle that's that crazy. They're just random rooms repeating empty content designed specifically to just let them have a bigger game that they really failed to fill with content. It's a stormy night out there. So yeah, you just get repetitions of rooms with a window or with a tapestry or carpet or basically nothing at all. You're not going to open these doors and wander into too many different places. So here what we want to do is pick up this roast boar. Ouch, it's too hot. And we'll want to get alcohol from this spigot in the keg. And you would think you could take this knife. That would be useful, but no. Let's look at the keg. And look at the spigot. I don't see anything special about it. Look at the roast boar. It's the biggest roast boar I've ever seen. It would take a long time to eat it. Let's see. We also, I think, have coals and a door, and that's it. This building apparently has electricity, and I guess that's true in the movie too. You can't double click on doors to open them or do a default action, which you kind of would expect that you could. Hick, my good friend. So we could offer an item this time or throw a punch. What are you doing here? Excuse me, I must be going. Hello, how are you? Now if we were to offer an item, there's no good reason to offer an item right now, but that might work later. Shoot yourself. There's a window here that we can open. This window hasn't been opened for century, it won't budge. You can look out this window. There's a sheer drop outside, nothing to stand on. But there are windows like that that we use later. It's a stormy night out there. Alright, so what we want to talk to this drunk soldier, because he'll be a very easy person to box. So we can either be very friendly with him and ask for his uniform, or we can ask him what he's doing here. Let's see. Hello, how have you? Terrible, I've run out of ale. May I get you another drink? Sure. Thank you. Here, take my beer stein. I don't know if that was spelled correctly. So now we have a beer stein. And we can go back into this area and use the beer stein with the spigot. And it fills up with a odd MIDI sound. We could have looked at the stein. You'd think in a modern game, they'd probably show you a 3D model of the stein, and it'd be an item you would pick up off the ground. We're just trying to speed run here, so we'll put the ale on that to start with. And while we're waiting for that to cool, we'll use the stein with the spigot again and fill it with ale. And so the steam is going to cool off. I don't think the steam stops until you walk out. So then we get to roast boar. So now we have beer stein and roast boar. And there's not anything super fancy going on with this. Hick, my good friend. So now we can just offer an item of the stein. Take this stein. Here. Hey, thanks a lot. So yeah, you probably couldn't use the roast boar with the stein and like beer batter roast boar. And so you don't have like an ability to attack the guy first and foremost. But let's see. We can ask, what are you doing here? Me here? Say, why are any of us put on this life? Soldier, you're drunk on duty. Hick, I'll show you who's drunk. And so here you can see I have a massive amount of health compared to this guy. So this is a weird boxing mechanic though. The idea of just waiting for your punch power to get high enough to knock him out is kind of ridiculous. I have a Stein, and that's all you can get from him. What you would have wanted would have been his uniform, because with a uniform then you can wander through the environment a lot easier and safer. But there is a certain point at the end of this whole section where even having uniform does not fool one of the strongest soldiers in the game. Halt, are you here on official business? So here's the joke that it's not even at the beginning of the with the butler. It's here. I'm here selling these fine leather jackets like the one I'm wearing. Quickly out of the way, I have a message for the colonel. Where's the prisoner? I've come to interrogate him. This would be the right answer. They're holding him upstairs, but who are you? Gestapo Special Invasive Dietrich's successor. Dietrich? Wasn't he killed in the Ark of the Covenant fiasco? Yes. How do you know about that? Are you leaking information? No, sir. You may go now, sir. Sorry. But see, that only lasts you like a brief second. If you walk into the guy again, he will totally catch you again. And this is an area that will be slightly recognizable later on. But I don't know if there actually is anything that you can actually do at this point in the game. There's a suit of armor. There's a statue of Hitler who kind of looks like he has breasts in that depiction. There's a statue in a fireplace. And that's about it. So you can like push, I think, this statue. Nothing seems to happen. Push maybe this statue. There we go. And see, that gets you out of the building. Kind of redundant. So if you want to investigate, you have to kind of wait until you can see everything. Here we go. Now we've got it. So we found some uniforms. There's a lock on these uniforms. There's a servant uniform. So you can, what you're going to do is upgrade, as it were, your outfit several times. It's a servant's uniform. It's just my size. It's an officer's uniform. It's just my size. It's only the gray uniform though. Like, oddly, you see a kind of greenish uniform, I'd say more than gray, and then an orange uniform behind that. Wonder why they're using such a big lock just for uniforms. So you get this censored bar, which that was kind of funny, but you don't ever get to see it again. Hey, you weren't wearing that last time I saw you. You must be the intruder. So they know there's an intruder. So what you really want to do is step back, wait until they walk into it, step back, walk into it. You can only go so far though, and there definitely are people here that you'll fight that hit you so hard that they can hit you in one hit. Or there's at least one character that you can fight that will hit you in one hit. There's nothing on him. And then you kind of see that every time on a lot of these characters. So let's look out the window. It's a stormy night out there. Let's see if we can open this window. Hasn't opened in centuries, won't budge. It's a sheer drop outside, nothing to stand on. So there was nothing actually even in this room that mattered. And frankly, at this point, it is wise to just save. And we may just save multiple times in a save slot 8, as it were. Because there's a lot of situations here. Who told you could wander around here? Here we have a fat soldier. They randomized this quite often. I'm on an errand for your fellow soldiers. Excuse me, I'm on the way to get a broom. Really, what's the nature of this errand? I'm bringing him a drink. What kind of drink? Stein of good German beer. Drinking's not allowed on duty. It slows the reflexes. Let's see how's yours are. So you definitely see that there is a scenario here where you can mess up and you're gonna just end up punching. Take note that if you get too close to these guys, you can walk kind of into them, and then that won't work. I definitely could imagine a scenario where this was all the game was going to be, and there was going to just be no point and click adventure. We started to collect money all of a sudden, which that's fairly ridiculous. And it would almost make sense to be collecting money and clearing out that first area, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense because after that first floor, you pretty much don't ever go back down to that at all. So yeah, let's go ahead and save again. It's just totally not worth it to do anything other than end up fighting all these people. Like you could probably trick a couple of them. There's definitely some items you could hand over, and that will add. You could like hand over the Grail Diary potentially and lose the game, or the old book that looks like the Grail Diary, or the painting, or the Stein. Probably don't want to hand over your IndieWare by Lucasfilm. It's my leather jacket and fedora. And you'll just get back those items later if you play right. Let's look in this chest because this is unique room. There's 50 marks in there. So at this point, almost you're increasing your bribe potential. Servant here. Wait a moment. You're no servant. So the number pad system here is pretty awkward because it does mean that you're switching back and forth. You're hitting the 9 button a lot. I found 20 marks on him. You're hitting the 9 and 7 button a lot when you really kind of wouldn't want to have to switch there, and you would like it to always be on one side. Let's open this door. Different hair colors on these characters. Let's see. Look out the window. Hey, there's Elsa across the way. What's she doing with all those Nazis? So there's your revelation that Elsa is a Nazi. Decent chance that we won't find everything. Halt, halt. And see, that guy said halt, halt, and chased us, but they won't chase us in the room, so you're fairly safe at that point. And I just barely did that battle, that boxing section right. So shouldn't be wandering around here. Someone has broken into the castle. Say, that uniform doesn't fit. You're the intruder. And look, my health is just getting worse and worse. And yeah, there's nothing that's going to save the day here. Like, you're not going to be able to win when your health has gotten down. After recovering consciousness, our hero Indiana Jones was forced to polish Hitler's ancient artifacts for the rest of Hitler's life. And since Hitler's people successfully located the Holy Grail, that was a very long time. So, our final score is episode 59, series 59, which probably means we've gotten all the points that we could have gotten. Alright. But there's no eat or drink, as it were, to raise your health. Undercooked pig is not one of my favorite foods. So we need to get smarter because we've hit a point where we can't have conversations. What might you be looking for? Alright. Let's see. Let's offer an item. The painting. Take this painting. What are you doing with that? You know this isn't supposed to be, the help isn't supposed to touch anything valuable. Okay. Alright, and here we have a dog's playing poker as a concept. Soon afterwards. Sir, I just received a new painting to add to the collection. Good work. Here, I wrote the combination to the vault on the back of this form. Memorize it. I've memorized it. I'll keep it in a drawer if you need it again. I'm sure I won't. I have an excellent memory. Good. So, notice the door's locked. So now we kind of know where to get into, how we're going to get into the vault, and we have to get into the vault more. Let's look at the dogs playing poker. Dogs playing poker. Dad once bought a copy of this at a flea market. And we can go ahead and push it. Painting doesn't move. We can look at the table. 14th century Georgian Lucasen. So there's only the old book otherwise to offer and money otherwise to offer. Meanwhile, we need our health to continue to go up. I very possibly just failed on the boxing part of this, and in all fairness, I don't know if this game actually guarantees that there's a way to get around all of these bad guys, because there is enough guards, certainly, and I don't know if we've really seen all of this second floor that we're on right now, if we're going to be able to see everything on the second floor before we get to the third floor. I don't believe there's a fourth floor, but to get to the very end, I think, of the third floor does require a lot of puzzling. We've gone another. We need to save again, so we'll just overwrite that. And if I really mess up, then I'll have to potentially load all the way back to the beginning of this whole act. Yeah, I could easily see us spending another hour puzzling through elements that certainly weren't in the movie at all. There was a decent amount of time spent in this area, and you can definitely feel that compared to a modern movie, there would have been more sets, more locations, as far as Indiana Jones went. A lot more going in different places. But even in Crystal Skull, I would say there's a lot of scenes that kind of just don't matter and are easily forgotten. But they are definitely stretching this out to be a much longer experience. It's an interesting question about what an acceptable amount of time would have been for a game this old. I imagine anything shorter than 4 or 5 hours, people would have been disappointed, but anything longer than 10 or 20 would have been unheard of. Unlike a lot of point and click adventures, I would also say that this game isn't doing the worst job it possibly could do to confuse you. It's just stretching things out. You also have some weird pixel art here. That's how it just kind of messes up there. I don't know if that's the Scum VM modification that I have doing that, or if that's just what they chose to do as far as the art. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.